This is the Blue Collar Future podcast where we talk about the future of trade work. So, last week, I know I didn't cover a lot of what I could have with the trade series episode with concrete. I covered a lot of kind of base level information, but maybe not as much of a comprehensive breakdown of the kind of workload and expected hours, type of work, tools needed, all that type of stuff. Um, I may or may not go that in depth with other ones. I'm going to wait to hear feedback from people who listen, and let's turn this into something where people can go to figure out what trade they want to try. If they see or hear something they like, I think that you can go on Instagram and start following accounts that do the work to see that type of stuff. But I think I kind of want to go over some information that maybe you don't hear about that much. Um, Last week, I mentioned that we went to, or we were going to do a project up here that's kind of down south from where we're at. That was a big project that was going to be really interesting. I wanted to recap a little bit of that since we did do concrete last week, and it was a interesting project that we don't typically get involved with. We poured the lid on a water tank in St. George, Utah, and we headed down there around noon on Friday, got situated and started working at 10 p.m. Started pouring the concrete at 10 p.m. We had 550 yards and we were done around 11 or 12 um, the next day. And it was a super crazy experience. The company we went to help was building the water tank, and they were, I'm pretty sure, doing most of the work, but they were also general contracting it. I'm pretty sure that they did all of the other concrete. So the floor, the walls to this water tank, and the pillars, and then also formed the suspended the suspended forms that we were pouring on top of. So obviously this is an empty space under there because it needs to hold water. So they had all of the walls around it in a circle, and then pillars throughout the middle, and then forms and rebar going to each pillar so that we had something to pour on top of, and probably assuming that those are going to be taken down later. They did all of that and worked on the rebar, um, poured the walls, did all of that stuff. And we came down to assist with the lid because they aren't necessarily professional flatwork people. And so we were on top of this water tank that was probably 30 to 40 feet tall and 16,000 square feet. And we had 550 yards. Sorry. And we're pouring all through the night, um, on top of this water tank. Super interesting to be working through the night like that. That was one of the first times I've started that late or that early, I guess, because usually when we start on a big pour, it's at 4 o'clock is usually a good time. And we're pouring close to the amount of square footage, but usually only 200 to 300 yards at a time. We usually don't pour more than that. It was a very long process and special mix because it needed to be with water. There was a lot of restrictions on the concrete. Every single truck had to be tested. There's a lot of there was a lot of ins and outs to this project that kind of made it difficult and challenging, and definitely an interesting project to be a part of. And that's a lot of the type of stuff you can get into with concrete, doing a lot of water infrastructure type stuff where you're building structures that contain or transport water or whatever it is. And there's always a lot of rules and regulations to them, and usually, obviously, government funded. And you can get in on these projects, and they're pretty good money and pretty interesting to be a part of. Um, yeah, we had an interesting time down there. So just wanted to add that in because we had talked about concrete last week. And I thought it was an interesting project to be a part of. This week, I want to keep on the kind of um, dirt world hardscape theme and talk about landscaping. Landscaping is kind of can kind of be included with concrete and excavation, kind of to this kind of hardscape dirt world type definition. And a lot of these don't get talked about a lot because the big three, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, kind of get talked about and touted as better or um, better paying, um, more skilled, that type of stuff. But there's a lot of skill and a lot of interest in these coming up because it's working with interesting materials, heavy machinery, all that type of stuff. You can see how concrete, I'll get into the definition of kind of landscaping and hardscaping, and you can kind of see how concrete and excavation can be kind of grouped together in these. There are actually a lot of companies that offer one or the other or both. A lot of excavation companies offer some landscaping services or concrete services. A lot of landscaping companies offer concrete services because they're already there doing the landscaping on say a house. So they also offer concrete for the patio or, pavers, steppers, steps or walkways and that type of stuff. While they do overlap, it is generally, if you are a true expert in one of those areas, you're going to do one or the other, and then only kind of offer the other ones as because you're there already. So while it can be good to hire one company to handle a lot of stuff, typically it's better to hire different companies. Like we talked about last episode, where a lot of times on a house there's a footing contractor, a foundation contractor, and a flat work contractor. All different companies doing different processes because they're all different enough that it warrants a different company that specializes in that process. There are a lot of different facets to landscaping. So, landscaping can generally be defined as constructing outdoor space, like yards, gardens, that type of stuff. The addition of plants and changes to the raw terrain to make it more appealing, including kind of planning and designing, laying out, and the construction of these uh, services. Under that definition, it's easy to see how concrete and excavation can also be involved in that because there's a lot of planning, laying out, and constructing of outdoor spaces with excavation, as in rock walls and dirt work, and concrete with patios, walkways, that type of stuff. The main purpose is to increase the appeal of a building, whether it's a commercial building or government building or your home, a school, whatever it is. You can be involved in this construction process, whether it's the doing the install itself or doing the design work. A lot of and even the maintenance side as well. A lot of people go to school for the design aspect of it and get degrees in landscape design. One of my friends did that. And there's a lot of interesting work to that. And basically, if you like design and you like doing that type of stuff, you can even do both, where you can draw designs and plan out outdoor living spaces like this, and then do the install for your clients. There's a lot of on the maintenance side, there's a lot of work involved with an outdoor space like this to maintain the quality of it, like um, mowing the lawn, pulling weeds, trimming bushes, that type of stuff. And a lot of people would rather just pay for that. So landscape maintenance companies are very popular. Um, and they will only get more popular with as more people come into the market with homes that they don't want to take care of the yard, but they still want to have one in order to have a nice outdoor living space. But that is the problem with it, is with the nice outdoor living space comes maintenance, and a lot of people don't want to do it. If you did want to go to school for landscape design, that's a good option. There's not a lot of schooling involved in landscaping. A lot of it is learning on the job, which I like. I like that you can learn on the job in trades and not have to go to school if you don't want to. You can learn with on the job experience and then start your own company. A lot of people, even nowadays, have started landscaping companies just with stuff they've learned online and just learning as they go. The install process, I would say, includes the, and I'm sure people will correct me if I'm wrong, especially with my buddy, it includes the rough site prep, which meaning bringing everything to approximately the grade that it's going to be with equipment, whether that's bringing dirt in, taking dirt out, moving dirt around, whatever. Um, Planning out and running your sprinkler lines, which is a very involved process and a very complicated process that a lot of people don't do right if they aren't a good landscaping company. And that's a lot of problems that people run into. If you wanted to do your own landscaping, that is one thing that you may want to consider hiring somebody else to do, is your sprinkling system, because there's a lot of work involved in maintaining water pressure and running the lines in such a way that it runs efficiently and effectively. Um, Prepping, the next step I'd say is prepping for final grade. Once you have your sprinkler lines in, I'd say the rough grade process is kind of dealing with existing dirt and maybe bringing fill dirt if you have to. And once you have the sprinklers in and covered up, you will be bringing in topsoil, which is good to have your grass and plants and all that stuff on. And after that, you would be bringing in the final materials and prepping for them. So that would involve laying down weed barrier paper wherever you need, um, wherever you're putting down gravel and bark and rocks and that type of stuff, and planting all of the plants and trees. Um, Laying the sod is usually last, but doing curbing, um, all of that type of stuff. And if you have to do any retaining walls, a lot of that's done in the rough site prep stage, I believe. But there's a lot of work involved in landscaping, and it's a really cool process. And you are building a lot of people's dreams in their outdoor living space, because almost everybody that has a home likes to have a nice yard and a nice outdoor living space. And if you are doing that residentially for homeowners and customers that way, you are building their dreams and something that they are going to enjoy forever. I was reading a little bit of about landscaping online just to get a couple uh, definitions nailed down. So I couldn't quite figure out how to articulate them. And one thing I was reading was saying that your landscaping is an extension of your rooms in your home, what according to some designers, being that your outside landscaping has a purpose. Every section has a purpose, and you are building these spaces to be either, taking up space so that it just looks nice, or being functional and usable, as in um, outdoor living, um, gathering areas, fire pits. Pools can be included in this type of stuff. I don't think a lot of landscape contractors do pools, but they may handle that in their landscape contract and contract pool building out. The same as concrete, they may handle concrete for patio spaces and that type of stuff, but they might hire it out as well. So everything has a purpose, and you are piecing together these rough elements and these rough materials to make something that's visually appealing and helps to add value and appeal to the property that it's on. In a commercial aspect, it's a lot more only looks and appeal to get enough plants, rocks, that type of stuff to take up the space that the surrounding area is on, and not necessarily be usable, but to look good. But it depends on what you're doing, and it depends on where you're at. I think landscaping is a really cool industry to get into, and there's a lot of design work involved. There's a lot of equipment operating involved. There's a lot of actual install and very technical things involved that require quite a bit of skills and um, just a general level of knowledge and stuff that people don't have. And it requires a lot more thinking than a lot of people realize. And usually there has to be at least someone on the job that really knows what's going on in order for them to turn out good. You can't just be, a dummy, as a lot of people think that blue collar guys are, especially in these types of jobs, these dirty jobs that are out in the weather all the time and are typically uneducated. You can't be a dummy doing this type of stuff, because a lot of problems can happen. I think landscaping is an awesome trade to get into. And I think that if anybody wants to get into landscaping, they should go watch, videos online, find somebody around them that they want to join, figure out what branch of landscaping they may want to do, whether they want to do big commercial projects, or they want to do small homeowner residential projects, or they want to do high-end residential projects. If you've watched any videos online, there's a lot of landscape companies that do some pretty crazy stuff. I see them all the time, where they transform a raw piece of dirt in a backyard to what almost looks like it could be on a resort. Um, there's a lot of different avenues to go down in landscaping, and you can do basically whatever you want. It's literally only limited by your imagination in that world. So if you like this episode, if you think someone can get something out of it, share it with them. And as always, I'm thankful for your support, and we will see you next week.